You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Lenard with NACS.
And I am Donovan Woods with the Fuels Institute at NACS.
So Donovan, my daughter is going to the University of Pittsburgh in the fall, and they're already talking, kids are already talking about who's here and who's there and all that, and it tends to be two camps. It tends to be kids from the Pittsburgh area, it tends to be kids from the Philly area. And that's actually got shortcutted to people who love Sheetz and people who love Wawa. Not making this up. She said, somebody should make a movie called Sheetz versus Wawa. Well, somebody is. So we are talking today with Matthew Fridge, and he's a filmmaker, and he's looking at putting together a movie called Sheetz versus Wawa, the movie, or some variation of that. Donovan, I know you're a huge movie fan and convenience store fan, so welcome to Matthew, and tell us a little bit about the Sheetz versus Wawa concept for your movie.
Hey guys, thanks so much. Sheetz versus Wawa is it's going to be a feature-length documentary film that, sometimes you hear the word documentary and you can think, snooze fest. But in this case, we want to make it fun and exciting and something that kind of reflects the levity of the rivalry between Sheetz and Wawa fans that exists in Pennsylvania and beyond. So, that's basically what it is.
Now, is this something, Matthew, that would go right to Netflix or Amazon, or are you kind of looking for where you would actually place this? Because I love documentaries. Yeah, so our goal is to make this as widely available as possible through digital download, iTunes, Amazon, Google, and then eventually through streaming platforms like Netflix or Hulu or something like that. Yes.
And when you talk about Sheetz versus Wawa, we're not talking about a battle with drama and protagonists and all those other traditional things that you might see in a feature-length movie. My understanding is it's as much about a celebration of the cult, the following that each of them has, and also the industry as a whole, how it applies much more broadly. Because yes, there's Sheetz against Wawa. There's also other awesome stores in the area. Rutter's comes to mind in Harrisburg, and some others in the state. And then you look at other rivalries, Quick Trip against Quick Trip. And again, they're not rivalries. They're just more like preferences and how consumers say, hey, that feels like me, that feels like somebody else. But I would define it more as a celebration of the industry, as more of a zero-sum game. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, obviously the rivalry is, I wouldn't say the rivalry is between people that are at the Sheetz headquarters and people who are at the Wawa headquarters are sitting there with the Situation Room figuring out how to battle one another. But it's really about fans who have identified so closely with a gas station, a convenience store, which to some people might seem very odd, but to people who know Sheetz or know Wawa or know one of these other stores in the same way, it's not odd to them at all. And by having such a deep connection with one, you inevitably have a rivalry exist when there's another very similar store that has a similar history, started in the same state with similar circumstances. And when one says, mine's better than yours, what are you going to get? When you have deep connection, you're going to get a rivalry, just like you would have with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers, right, or whatever it might be. It's really about us as human beings and why we relate so closely and deeply with one particular brand or group.
There's an emotional contact or emotional touch with both of those for me. I am born and raised in Virginia. However, my wife and I can think of specific things that we did, or we reference it by, remember the Wawa in Maryland, or remember the Sheetz out there in Haymarket, or this place. We can name cities, name areas
because we do have that connection with those places. And to any of our listeners who don't have that type of connection, if you were here, you would. Those stores are clean, bathrooms are clean, food is great. And for consumers who like clean bathrooms and good food, you do have a connection with those places. And you know what's different about this, Matthew, that I thought about it? With some industries, it's just the two top dogs and everyone else. You have your Nike or Adidas, you have your Spotify or iTunes. But with this, Wawa versus Sheetz, within the industry, this goes on a couple of different places throughout the country where there are not competing, but preferences between different stores. That's kind of different.
Yeah, I think it is very unique and cool in that way, and I think it's very American, if you will, that that when you have two or three, and in this case, we're talking about two, Sheetz and Wawa, and there are places in Pennsylvania and Maryland and different areas where you could have a Sheetz and a Wawa within a football field or a couple of football fields from each other. But the thing that I think is really cool about it is the way our system works is when there's more competition, it causes the companies to need to get better.
Exactly.
And the consumer is the beneficiary of that because that competition is driving innovation, it's driving lower prices. And, look at, there are some fast food chains right now that are starting to introduce touchscreen ordering systems. Well, who's had touchscreen ordering systems for, years, right? Sheetz and Wawa. So, maybe can McDonald's say thank you to them? I'm not 100% sure, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a movie about the battle of two cable companies or two banks or something like that. Was there an aha moment? You're a filmmaker and you do various different topics. Was there something? Was it the name? And it's like, I got the name. Now I just got to figure out the movie. Or was it like, hey, I'm just feeling something here, and now I got a name, and now I have a direction? What was the whole process in taking us to where we are now?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've done a lot of documentary stuff, short form and commercials and things like that. But a lot of the documentary stuff I had been doing was human interest, and some of the subject matter was kind of serious, and there wasn't a lot of room for levity. And I felt like, well, there's this part of my personality that wants to be a little bit funny and wants to have fun. And was working on a lot of that stuff, working with a friend of mine who had a feature documentary that went on Hulu. And sort of through all that process, I was thinking, like, I would like to do this documentary thing too. I'm really enjoying it, but I want to do it something more fun. And honestly, I'm a man of faith. I just kind of like praying for an idea. And I remember driving by a Sheetz in my friend's town, where my parents live, and it flooded back to me this memory from when I was in college, and I had friends from the Philly area, and they had this thing of Wawa, and it just all flooded back. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is the idea. And I thought, there's no way somebody hasn't already done this. And I remember like driving the speed limit, but maybe 1 mile per hour over the speed limit, but very quickly trying to get home and to get on my computer and see, Sheetz versus Wawa.com or Wawa versus Sheetz.com. And no one had it. No one had the social media handles. So I just gobbled all that stuff up and put a Facebook page and a poll and tried to just get it out there and even see if anybody cared anymore. Because I couldn't remember if like it was just me or whatnot. And over the course of several months, it grew, and people started to get excited about seeing it, and all to the point where I was able to meet with Sheetz and Wawa leadership and pitch them an idea for a film, and they said, "We love it.
That is great.
Go for it."
So just to let you know, both Sheetz and Wawa and a lot of other convenience stores do have Wi-Fi, and they do have charging outlets. So next time, don't drive home fast. Just pull over, grab something good to eat and drink. Put your thought together there. We'll help you with that. So
Exactly.
what are you have the idea, you have the words of encouragement from the leadership. What's next in terms of how do you storyboard something like this and the whole documentary process? How does it play out?
Well, getting story ideas and experts and people to be interviewed to tell the story is a big part of that process. So a lot of what I've been doing over the last several months, in addition to sort of growing that fan base, and in lieu of launching a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign to help fund the film, because we didn't want any. If it's a competition, we wanted really the fans to have a big voice in that. So that's going to be part of it, but also finding experts in the field that know about it and seeing if they're interested. And we have found experts that are interested in being part of the film. But also, I've got a lot of emails from fans of the stores that have really interesting stories. And part of what I wanted to do with the film was not just tell a little history of each store, just to give us background and, give us some context in the greater convenience store industry and how that affects us, and even understand the science of rivalries and human behavior. But what are some personal stories that people have that are heartfelt and compelling, that really connect us all to universal ideas? Because it really could just be a film about two stores that maybe somebody in California or Montana has never heard of, and it would be great. It would be amazing. But I think what film has the ability to do is latch onto universal human ideas and use a specific context to illustrate that. So my hope is that through evaluating the different foods and having a little bit of a contest and on all that kind of stuff, that we'll understand a little bit more about ourselves at the end of the film.
That is okay. So I'm kind of geeking out. That's really awesome. And I say that because, not to sound corny or because I work with NACS, just because there is the human side of it. And those who really like movies or really like even books, that you can actually relate to something, even if you haven't experienced it, is I think you're going to really benefit from on this one, because I'm sure with all the interviews you've had, you've gotten that passion, you've gotten the reasons why, and there are stories that are beyond just, I like the certain food. There's a history to it. There's something that's happened to them. And I'm curious, when you think about the consumer themselves, going through this process thus far, what have you learned when it comes to consumer preference? Not so much which one they pick, but just when you talk to consumers, what really inspires their preference?
It's interesting because there's definitely rational things you would think would be factors, but I feel like if I was just to deduce my gut so far, it's really just like this feeling. Mm-hmm. I've had people say, I'll pass by several exits when I'm driving if I have to go to the bathroom real bad or something like that. And then when I see that Wawa sign or I see that Sheetz sign, I just know it's like home. It's safe.
Right.
And I think a lot of that comes from where you've grown up, what your past experiences have been, and a lot of those factors definitely. But the stores themselves are very impressive compared. So if you have someone who maybe has come from a different part of the country and hasn't experienced a convenience store like a Sheetz or a Wawa, and they would have only maybe experienced a quote unquote gas station, they're amazed by what they've seen. Even people I know from other countries have gone back with a Sheetz mug, or because there's just something about it that it's hard to put your finger on it. But I think a lot of it is emotional. It's emotional and sort of the story that you've created from your own experiences with that particular store.
And I think that applies across our industry, regardless of size. We get 165 million customers a day, and there's all kinds of interesting stories about how somebody We've done consumer intercepts and focus groups with those who've worked in the industry and what they learn and what guidance could they share. And one of the things they say is you have an amazing power to change somebody's mood. Just by a simple smile, somebody comes in, don't seem the happiest, you can change their day. You can make their day. You don't know what everybody's dealing with, but true. The idea of convenience in a happy convenience store, and it doesn't have to be somebody that has 600, 700, 800 stores. We did a podcast a couple weeks ago where we talked to somebody, one store operator. He offered free tattoos of the store brand to the first 13 people who showed up at a tattoo parlor. 100 did. Amazing. So you're able to really connect with customers on a different level with convenience stores than pretty much anybody else. You kind of lay it on the line when you come in there. They're solving problems. They're not creating problems. It's not like going on hold where you're on hold for 30 minutes and they play some awful music. So what are the next steps? You have a Kickstarter campaign going, and when does the lens cap come off and shooting begin on all this?
So we have a Kickstarter that's going on right now as we're, this is coming out. And we're one thing that's interesting about the Kickstarter is we're throwing out a challenge to Sheetz and Wawa fans as to see which group, which team is more supportive and more vocal and more excited to see the film come out. So which team can raise more support during this Kickstarter campaign, Team Sheetz or Team Wawa. So that's going to be fun to see where we end up by the end of the 30 days of Kickstarter. And this summer, as we get into May and June, we'll be taking the lens cap off and traveling to stores and getting interviews. And we have some interesting things lined up that we're not ready to announce right now, but we have some exciting partners that have shown that the interest in wanting to taste test the food and break it down and talk about that. Some partners who are really coffee connoisseurs who want to really put the coffee through its rigors. And honestly, some taste tests have been done, and you can search the internet. But what we want to do is we want to take it to the next level and really push some of these taste tests, some of these offerings and ideas, what happens at both stores to the max, and see what happens, and see where the fans end up, where the stores end up. But I'll tell you what I know the most is what I said before, where they both exist and where innovation and convenience exists, no matter what stores, the consumer is always the winner. But I'm excited to see where the movie ends up. I don't know. So that's the fun of documentary.
And Matthew, just before we wrap up, I want to make sure I get this out there so everyone can hear clearly. People may listen to this and then go, I wonder if it's made by now, because they may listen months from now or they may listen the day it drops. But where can they go to keep up with the progress of the film?
Absolutely. We have a website, sheetzversuswawa.com. That's Sheetz with a Z, VS, Wawa.com, Sheetz versus Wawa. All of our social media handles at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are Sheetz versus Wawa. Super simple to remember. So on our website, you can easily sign up on our email list, and you will get updates directly in your inbox as we have prizes or giveaways or updates or behind-the-scenes things we want to share as we make the film. The email list is a great place to stay connected and stay connected with us on social media for also other fun things as we go along. And if you're listening by the beginning of within the month of April, you can visit our website, and that'll give you a direct way to find our Kickstarter page.
I love the way you said that, Matthew. The consumers win, the customers win. I think our industry wins in this. And one more thing, just want to see if you'll agree to this. If you happen to be on stage winning an Oscar, will you give a shout out to Convenience Matters?
Absolutely.
There you go.
And
I'll take all the love you can get. But I'm just happy to have the opportunity to do what I love and make films and hopefully be pleasing to fans and the industry and make a good film first and foremost. If anything else comes from that, then Convenience Matters. You'll be definitely one to thank. So thank you right now.
Thank you. And convenience does matter. Thank you to listening Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.